Dr. Anandakrishnan is an extraordinary educationist and leader, a visionary and a pioneer. Felicitating him and speaking on the topic effectiveness of regulatory bodies on education is another eminent educationist, Professor S.P.Thyagarajan, former Vice Chancellor, University of Madras. Dr. Thyagarajan holds a DSc degree in microbiology in addition to his PhD and MD degrees. He is the recipient of several fellowships and titles. Most recently, he received the Honorary Fellowship in Travel Medicine from the Royal Society of Physicians and Surgeons, Glasgow, UK. He has 48 years of rich teaching experience and has completed 60 research projects, published 347 research papers and 20 books. He has also produced 32 PhD candidates and 12 postdoctoral fellows. He brought great laurels to the University of Madras by making it a university with potential for excellence and also organized the 150th year celebrations of the university. We humbly request Dr. S.P. Thyagarajan to speak on effectiveness of regulatory bodies on education.
My most respected Professor Anandakrishnan, Madam Anandakrishnan, respected distinguished dignitaries of the dais and friends. Let me state here that Professor Anandakrishnan has been my chief mentor in my entire career, both in the sphere of higher education as well as in science and technology. In fact, it has been Professor Anandakrishnan who promoted me both in my science and technology research career as well as molded me to understand the nuances of higher education. Because his endeavor to really promote myself in these areas, I have been able to perform in many of the committees of UGC. In some of them, I have also worked with him as the chairman of those committees. It is my profound pleasure I take in praying the Almighty to shower all His sweetest blessings on this very young couple, Mrs. Anandakrishnan and Dr. Anandakrishnan. We wish that they will live longer, happier and healthier, and all of us more in number will assemble for the centenary year celebrations. I have been given the topic effectiveness of regulatory bodies in higher education. Today, we talk of teaching learning crisis as a global phenomenon in the sectors of both school and higher education. If you look back, India, from the post-colonial period, has been focusing on expansion of the education system in order to increase the gross enrollment ratio so that all the eligible group of children will be able to get educated to a maximum extent. Initially, to achieve this, a command and control model of educational management was developed. This led to implementation of policies and programs for ensuring equitable access and expansion with very little emphasis on strategies and schemes to deliver learning outcome and employability of the educated people. In order to operationalize this command and control model, legal entities called regulatory bodies were instituted by the acts of the central and state governments. There are enormous number of bodies, as all of us know, at least 5 regulatory bodies for school education and 13 regulatory bodies for higher education, and the chief of the higher education bodies are the UGC, AICTE, NCTE, and professional education councils. The UGC alone, in the last 5 years, has enacted more than 100 regulations and ordinances and guidelines. One can imagine how many regulations would have been notified by all the other 18 different regulatory bodies in the country? So, but all of them have attempted to ensure minimum standards in both school and higher education sector of our country. This has definitely resulted in massification of education in general and higher education in particular. As our great friend and former chairman of UGC, Dr. Ved Prakash has stated, the gross enrollment ratio has reached 25.2%. But what is important was felt at the time of the 12th five-year plan period. Therein, India went for a shift in the higher education governance form from command and control model to steer and evaluate model, giving more autonomy and accountability in letter and spirit to the states of Indian subcontinent and also to the higher education institutions with the goal of improving quality and enhancing quality. One of the crusaders of this particular quality initiative is Professor Anandakrishnan. It was in that time he took a very strong note in all the committees that he has been chairing, wherein in some I have also been a member. He has stated boldly that Indian higher education requires systemic and structural reforms. These were his favorite terms, which he always quotes both in the higher education committees as well as in the mass media. He has also been one of the academic advocates for a new regulatory framework to achieve quality in higher education. So, new quality regulatory frameworks in higher education are expected to provide the quality and the quantity of educated, employable manpower needed for our country to continue its growth and economic upheaval of the Indian subcontinent. Hence, the new regulatory framework model should have to be a facilitator to make higher education institutions to understand and assimilate quality measures in higher education. You should firstly rethink quality in terms of ensuring equitable opportunity to access higher education and, more importantly, internal efficiency of the higher education institutions, graduate outcomes and attributes, besides external efficiency authentication. Secondly, it has to move from the standard-based and input-output-based quality assessment audits to learner outcome and external efficiency-based continuing quality assurance model. And thirdly, it has to rethink and articulate minimum quality measures to guide accreditation of higher education institutions and the governance of quality to be brought out at the higher education institution level itself so that autonomy and accountability can be parallelly realized in letter and spirit. There should be a system of incentivization and consequences. Incentives for those who do well and consequences for those who do not act in the best interest of their students. If an higher education institution wishes to be successful and be there for a long run, it needs to ensure that its stakeholders are satisfied and it is able to deliver on its promised value predisposition. Therefore, the new regulatory framework is needed with proper checks and balances and accountability. Policy planners should always make it a center point that we have a thriving sector which can become an enviable model for the entire world if supported with positive system and quality involved processes to achieve the same. Since Dr. Anandakrishnan has been always spearheading for quality in higher education research, I consider that he is the fitting multifaceted personality to be facilitated in this great function. My humble submissions to Dr. Anandakrishnan is to continue his services to the cause of higher education for this country. I I pray the Almighty for giving him all his strength to work for this country and to contribute for higher education.